going to start off with our first candidate. They have drawn lots ahead of time. And so this is the order in which they drew their lots. We are going to start off with opening statements from Douglas Lyon. Well, first of all, I'm going to introduce the candidates. That's what I said I'd do. Douglas Lyon is the first candidate, is number 1. Ed Reese, number 2. Jennifer Stark, number 3. Zach Corser, number 4. Michael Sarasso, number 5. And Jed Liano, number 6. You may applaud. Get it all out of your system right now. Okay, Doug, we're going to open with you with our opening statements from Douglas Corser. Now, I did say there'd be a podium, but I think last time we did it just standing at the table there, or sit. You can either stand or sit at the table.
I think I'd rather stand up.
What did I say? Douglas Lyon. I'm sorry. What did I call
But no doubt because we look so much alike. but anyway, thank you to Active Claremont for arranging this evening for us. Thank you to you all for coming to listen to us. And I hope we make it worth your while. And I certainly will try to make it worth your while. There are many issues engaging our community. But we're going to be hearing about a lot of them tonight from all of you. Although, why am I running? Well, there's one particular issue that sort of comes to the top of my list, and it's sort of on a broader level than a particular program or anything. It's what I call the physical character of Claremont. Some writers would call it our sense of place. Attributes which have been valued by us in Claremont for so many different years. The trees, the small town feel, the pleasantly human personal scale of our civic environment, the less crowded, less stressful character of the town. Just those, some of which are more intangible than tangible, that give Claremont a unique and a character that's unique and distinct from other cities, that enhances the variety of our perceptions and our experiences as we're out in town, and that just makes it comfortable for us. A question we can ask for ourselves is, will these characteristics be assured and valued? Will they still be available for future generations to enjoy as we've been able to enjoy them ourselves? And as people, and not just a few people, have told me that those are a lot of the things that they moved here to enjoy. And what comes up about this point is somebody asked, does this mean no new development and no changes at all? And no, of course not. It does mean, however, that new developments and changes should fit in with the existing traditions and scale of the city. And another question we can ask ourselves, are we a town that's already comfortable with ourselves? Or are we striving to become something that we've never been? My personal goal is just simply a pleasant place to live, that's all. I would just like Claremont to be a pleasant place to live. Thank you.
Now, Ed Reese.
Well, good evening. Thank you to Active Claremont for putting on the forum. It's great that we come out and share some ideas and get some questions on what's important to this community. I'm going to take you a little bit through kind of who I am and then my thoughts on our community. My life was different than many others. I was raised by a divorced immigrant mother. She struggled. We struggled almost my entire childhood. We moved around from home to home to a point when I was homeless in high school. While I was able to get over that, I ended up getting diagnosed with cancer and went through that fight. But at 19, I started my business. And while I started my business, like most small business owners that are starting off with a dream and limited resources, I worked for someone else, and I was recruited by a Fortune 500 company to run a pilot program here in Claremont, specifically in the village. When I got to Claremont, I fell in love and made Claremont my home. I've been involved since in a number of civic, community, and cultural groups, from the Finance Committee of Sustainable Claremont, to chair-elect of the Chamber of Commerce, to chair of the Police Commission, and president of the Inland Valley Repertory Theater. Like everyone in this room, we want a better community. We have a unique reputation in Claremont. We have a high quality of life. We have much desirability. We have an experience like no other. But we do have fiscal challenges. You know, we have social service gaps. We have infrastructure repairs. We have sustainability goals. But how do we balance all of that, the Claremont of today, and balance that into the Claremont 20 years from now? We want to maintain that community sensibility, that small town feel. Kind of those are the things that attracted us to Claremont in the first place. So I think there's opportunity to grow this economy. I think there's an opportunity to look at housing for new and young families. I think there is going to be college growth and a town-to-gown relationship that needs to be renewed. We have transportation and transit expansion and really challenges that may come. And of course, we need to look at other economic opportunities to bring in revenue. So I look forward to sharing more later this evening, and thank you all for being here.
Okay, Jennifer Stark.
Should I take it under the table or just sit down? I'm here. So, my name's Jennifer Stark, and to be honest with you, I don't really like talking about myself. I would prefer to participate and do the work together as a community, but because I have to, I will, and after all of the forums that are coming ahead of us, by the end of it, I'm sure I'll be really great at it. I see this as a job interview, and I really want this job, and I feel as though I'm interviewing to all of you to hire me for this job. I was raised in Claremont. I raised my family here in Claremont. I went to school in Claremont, and my 3 children also went to school here in Claremont. I work in Claremont, and I serve on 2 boards. I serve on the board of Claremont Heritage, where I'm on the Finance Committee. I serve on the board of Friends of the Claremont Library. I started a nonprofit with some friends of mine where we serve the needs of local refugee families and help them move from survival to thriving. I'm a part of Sustainable Claremont. I'm on the Green Crew. I'm a tree steward. Oh yeah, I'm on a commission. I'm on Traffic and Transportation Commission. I want to be on City Council because I want to serve this city and I want to listen and learn from you. There's a lot of issues that are facing our city, none that are unsurmountable. There are, I think that we can attend to our infrastructure needs, both our concrete infrastructure needs and our green infrastructure needs. I believe that we can build relationships and also build our economic stability. I feel deeply indebted to this town, and it would be an honor to serve. Thank you.
Zachary Corser.
Hello, my name is Zach Corser. Nice to see some faces again here at Active Claremont. I love Claremont so much I moved back 3 times. And I think this one's stuck because I've really enjoyed my career here, I really enjoy my life here, and I've decided, the best way that I can do to give back is to get involved in our community. I'm on the board of Claremont Heritage, I'm on the Preservation Issues Committee, I'm now chair of the Traffic and Transportation Commission, and have put in a lot of effort into that because there's a lot of issues that relate to transportation that are important to Claremont and to the region as well. I also work in politics, and I have to say one of the things that I really like to see is how full this room is. I mean, if you think back to just 2015 when we canceled our city council election, I feel like we've made such progress where people are now talking and engaging in issues that are important to this community. And as you know, local government in California doesn't work unless you're involved. The people up here, we can only do so much. We really rely on you and your input to make California government, local government, Claremont government work. So it's really great to see you all here. I'm excited that it's election season. I'm excited that we're going to get a chance to talk about some issues. And timing is everything. Coming up for the next council, there's some big challenges on the horizon for Claremont, one of which is a structural budget deficit. For those of you who have been following the Courier and reading the city manager's report, you know that we're facing a structural deficit that's going from $1 to almost $2 million in the next 2 to 4 years. And there's going to be some hard decisions to make. Well, I think I have some solutions. I've spent a lot of time learning about Claremont as a community. I've spent a lot of time learning about how politics and government work here, and I feel like I've got some really good ideas, some experience, and some skills that I can apply on the city councils to make Claremont work better. I got ideas like broadening our tax base. Claremont's really underweight on sales tax, for example, thinking about ways to grow our business community so we don't have to cut vital services. Being creative about looking for grant funding. The other thing that I'm really passionate about is the Village South project. I've been very involved in this really since I first got involved in traffic and transportation, and it's going to change the face of Claremont. We have to work together as a community with the council, with the commissions, and with the community to make that project work best for Claremont, because we won't have another chance at that. So I'm very dedicated to that. The other thing I think that a process that started in the council, but now it's out in the community, is homelessness. Measure H passed a couple years back, but Joe Lyons has really helped to make this process take shape. In order to bring funding, the city's going to have to work as a super referrer, but we're going to have to organize at the local level to bring in more resources and more funding so we can take care of those less advantaged. And those are the three things I'm really passionate about, and I look forward to talking to you individually and more about it here on the panel. Thank you.
Okay, Michael Sarasso.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Sarasso, and if you didn't know, I'm running for Claremont City Council. I want to say first a thank you to a citizen somewhere over there I can't find her. I'm always very nervous before I get on a forum, and my zipper was down, and she had caught it. And this would have been a completely different story for the Courier. I'm a West Covina boy. My mom is a single parent, took care of me, raised me. She dealt with mental illness, dealt with drug addiction while I was growing up. Part of my background, part of my personal story is that I was in and out of foster homes growing up and was taken care of by families and communities that loved me. So I developed an understanding of community very, very early on. I started coming to Claremont at that time on the 187 Foothill Transit bus, coming to Rhino. Was the in thing to do at 17, 18. Go into Rhino, get a bunch of records, and then realize that I didn't have a car and that I need to go back on the transit bus carrying those records. It wasn't the greatest of plans and strategies. But I fell in love with Claremont very, very early on. My mom passed away in 2007. And before that, the last 5 years of her life, she gave back. She cleaned up, she got her mental illness in check, and she opened up a sobriety home. And at that time, I was jumping back and forth between community colleges, really figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. When she had passed, I realized, you know what, game on. It's time for me to give back, and that I have the resources and support and love that I could choose any path that I wanted to. So I took the money that my mom had left me and became a fanboy. I can't state who I became a fanboy for, but I jumped on the presidential election and just followed that candidate around and learned about how to organize in different communities across the country. In 2011, at 29, I finally decided to come back to this community to earn my degree. Pitzer College took me in, and I finally became a resident here in Claremont. I fell in love with the city, spent 4 years earning my degree, working as a community organizer not only here, but in LA County, and really learned about this city and learned to love this city. I wasn't ready to be a public servant at that point, but I decided that when Sam Perdoza dropped out, and cutting to this end the story now, when Sam Perdoza decided to drop out in 10 years of grooming candidates, that I was ready to become a public servant. I am going to talk about the police station tonight. I'm going to talk about infrastructure tonight. I'm going to talk about sustainability tonight. And I hope that at the end of it, that I earn your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Jed Liano.
Well, good evening, everybody. I hope that by the end of the night I can see you because that bright light is flashing directly at me. So this is standing room only, so I'm excited to be here with all of you to share my vision for Claremont. And it's a little bit intimidating because when you have a standing room only crowd, you realize that all the eyeballs on you. I feel like I'm Sonny Corleone at the toll booth right now. But, I want to just tell you who I am and why I'm running. And I'm proud to be here as a candidate for City Council for this city. I'm an immigration attorney. I've been practicing law for the last 12 years. And my wife and I moved to Claremont in 2011. And coming to Claremont was a little bit of an accident. In 2011, my wife and I were trying to decide where we were going to start our family. And we were living in Pasadena, where I still have my law practice. And I wanted to go to Los Angeles and raise a family in the city. My wife wanted to go to the suburbs and have a big yard with a big tree, so we compromised and we got a house with a big yard and a big tree. And 2011, we moved into Claremont, we got engaged. 2012, we got married. 2013, we got pregnant. 2014, our son was born. 2015 and 16, I don't remember. But in 2016, at some point, I woke up and I realized that I wanted to do something to create some positive change in this community. So I became a Community and Human Services Commissioner. And in that capacity, I oversee our city's response to homelessness, our aging programs, youth sports, management of all of our public parks and our public lands and right-of-ways, special events, and how we manage our urban forests and deal with sustainability. And I believe, having handled those issues and having served in that capacity for the last 2 years, that Claremont is ripe for the passing of the torch to a new generation of leadership, ready to handle the structural problems that we face right now, like balancing our budget, like handling our unfunded pension liabilities, like building a police station that's safe to protect this community, but also thinking about the future. How do we deal with an increasing homeless problem, affordable housing problem? How do we deal with an increasing aging population? And how do we make programming and infrastructure to create a sustainable environment for this community? So that's what I believe, and that's why I'm running. I hope I can go on November 6th. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, candidates, for keeping to your time limits. You don't really want me to have to cut you off. I can't turn down your mics, but I have other ways. Okay, we're going to start now with the first question. We're going to start with Douglas Lyon. I got it right. Sorry, I don't know why I said person. Douglas Lyon, so he will have the first question. The second question, we'll start with Ed Reese and then do that progressively. So the first person isn't always stuck answering the question first. Okay, there's so many questions here. I tried to put them in categories, but here's an interesting one. Council members Lyons, Schrader, and Pedroza all stated at the most recent council meeting in one way or another that the council needs to trust the judgment of city staff and department heads. If it's not the responsibility of council members to provide oversight and hold both staff and department heads accountable, then exactly what is the role of the council? 2 minutes.
Well, the role of the council is to guide the city and to guide the city government specifically. The city government exists because there is a city here to govern. We're a city that has a city government, not a city government that has a city. and we elect the city council to guide and direct the city government, which starts with the city manager, and the city manager gives direction to the staff lower down. And it is their job to do that and to delve into the details as much as they need to in order to be able to give direction to the city manager and the staff below the city manager to a level of detail that is necessary for the staff to carry out the vision of the city council. And we saw in the water litigation, unfortunately, I think what was part of that event was a certain breakdown in the passing of guidance and leadership from the city council to the staff to the legal team. And we ended up not having a case that was going to be successful in court. And I think that's not to blame anybody in particular, but I think we should learn from our mistakes and just resolve not to do that again, and to have a city council that is going to be delving into the details. And that's certainly what I've been doing so far on the city, on the planning commission. Been there for 4 years, and we have recently finished the Village South Pacific Plan Goals and Guiding Principles document, rewrote it quite significantly to make it better reflect Claremont values and Claremont characteristics. And that is the end of my time.
So that's a great question. What is the responsibility or the role of city council? And I think the easiest and fastest way to say that is to govern our community. But what does that really mean? In my mind, that includes oversight and fiduciary responsibility. That includes being visionaries and taking a community and bringing it together and moving it forward for what's best for all of us, and be inclusive of all of us. I think that includes helping us set values and make sure that in all our decisions we are reaching towards those values and towards the mission of the community. Specifically, I think there's an opportunity in regards to working and collaborating with both staff as council members and as a community to come together to face the challenges that we will be experiencing in the coming years. And I think it requires a strong council to do that. I think we will have some very hard decisions, and I think some of them will not be popular, but it is needed. It is required to take us where we need to go and protect this quality of life that we enjoy.
The city council's primary obligation is to every single one of the citizens in every corner of the town in its entirety. The city staff's job is to perform their position of expertise. And then the city council has to be accountable for those decisions. A city has so many different facets. It requires a group of different, we have all these different departments with different experts who do different things really, really well. The city council's job is to listen to those recommendations and then to act accordingly with the best interest of the city in mind. So do I think that our city staff should do I think that our city council should trust our city staff? Yes, I absolutely think they should. If we are not trusting our city staff, then we need to think about different hires. We hire people who are competent and who do their job well. And that's all I have to say about that.
Being on the city council is a tough job, as I'm sure anybody back here who's on the city council would be happy to tell you about. There's some challenges. It's a peculiar position. In some ways, you're really responsible for hiring two people, the city manager and the city attorney. Your job on the city council is to set policy It's responsibility of the staff to carry it out. Now, the problems happen when that message gets muddled. And that's what makes it a really difficult and challenging job to be a city council person. There's also the open meetings laws, you know. If we were all elected to council and got together, we could just, have coffee and deliberate about policy. It has to be done in an open meeting in front of you, the community. So a lot of that deliberation, a lot of that homework has to be done outside individually. There's a lot of work that has to be done by a city council person, sort of hands-on, detailed approach, where you're talking to elements of the community, you're communicating with the staff, you're thinking about policy goals that are achievable, and you're bringing that sort of, doing your homework and bringing that mindset when you come to council meetings and are thinking about policy. And then you have this oversight responsibility where you have to keep an eye on the staff and make sure that they're living up to the desires and goals and of policy that the council has set. So it's a challenging position. It takes a lot of, I think, a special kind of skill in terms of communication, in terms of knowing the process, in terms of knowing the players. I feel like in my time on traffic and transportation, I've really learned about how local government works, how Claremont works, because as we all know, I remember being in this room not too long ago, where we're trying to save the Metrolink station, and we had an even better turnout that night. And that's when Claremont government works best, where the council sets policy based on firm and good communication with the community, and that the council follows through and makes sure that the staff carries out those goals. Again, if that mission gets muddled, the city doesn't work. So that's my answer to that question. Thank you.
I agree with all four of them. But I also have my own perspective about what a city council person should bring to the table. And I think that's energy. Not waiting just for the individuals that are being vocal and loudest, but actually going into the parts of the community that are not. Everybody has neighbors, community members. Everybody has different challenges and different things that they're responsible for. And I think if I'm lucky to become on the city council, that I would want to be the type of candidate that goes into those, or type of individual that goes into those communities and actually speaks to persons at their front door. I think there's a lot of people here today, and I think that's amazing, but I think the role of a city council person is to make sure that we continue to expand and build on that, because then we can build consensus. I look at the police station as a prime example of the need to build consensus. We had some parts of the community where we saw turnout at 20-25%, where folks did not turn out because they didn't understand what the police station meant to them and in their community. As a city council person, I want to make sure that if I'm going to advocate for anything, if it's for the goal line, if it's for the Claremont South, if it's for a new police station, that every individual in this room and individuals that are not in this room are hearing from me, and I am pitching them on the ideas that I want to sell to the public. And then go back to my city council members and make sure that I can make a convincing argument that I have not only the ideas, but also the consensus from the entire city, not just one part of it. Thanks.
I think that the question that's being asked, I think that there are actually two issues that are being asked here. What do you think that the council's role is relative to staff? And let me tell you what I think that is. I think that when it comes to the city council's role relating to staff, I think that the council members should defer to the technical knowledge and expertise of our staff. I'm not a finance professional, but we have a finance director. When it comes to matters of finance, we should be listening to and using the information from our finance director. I'm not a law enforcement professional, but when we need to deliberate on matters of public safety and police policy, I need to listen to the expertise of our police chief and our law enforcement professionals. But getting back to this larger question of what is the role of a council member, I think that as a council member, you ought to defer to the specialized knowledge and expertise of staff. But the judgment belongs to you, because you elect the council members. You elect the people who decide what is important to this community. And so I think as a council member, a responsibility is to set policies and make decisions and say with your own best judgment, based on having been elected, this is what I think that we need to do in policy.
Okay, I just wanted to mention to the candidates, you don't have to stand up to answer these questions. It was just for the opening statements and closing statements. But you can if you want to, but you don't have to. Oh, is it? Okay, okay, that's fine.
Our mics is playing around.
I know, I'm not sure what to do about that. Just talk. Okay, all right, our second question, we're going to start with Mr. Reese, Ed Reese. And, oh, I guess put my new glasses on here. Okay, some might argue there isn't enough diversity of opinion on the council. Looking back on the decisions the city council has made over the past 10 years or so, if you people have been in town for 10 years, please give 2 examples of decisions you disagree with. One where the council approved an issue and one where the council rejected an issue. If you can. But on your thinking caps.
Goodness, I'll be honest with you, there's a number of issues, but to come up with 2 specifics that you want us to discuss, I will tell you that I think there's a number of issues within our community that not everybody agreed upon. And I think that includes the water. I think that includes Measure SC. And I think there's an opportunity that just because council members unanimously vote for something doesn't mean that there's not a diversity of opinion. I think part of the role, and going back to somewhat of the previous question, part of the role of council is to seek that opinion, seek those answers of what people want from our community, to go out and find that. And so to talk about diversity just being the color or the ethnicity or the social and economic status of someone that sits on council, I will tell you as a Latino, one that grew up in a bilingual home, bicultural home, and one that is proud to be in a loving relationship with my partner. There is diversity, and sometimes it doesn't look brown, sometimes it doesn't look black, sometimes it doesn't look green, but there is definitely diversity in our community, and we have to go out, look for that diversity, bring it to council, no matter who you are. We need to be council members for all of Claremont.
Can you hear me? Oh. I'm having a hard time remembering a time that I agreed and a time I didn't agree with council decisions. But I'll tell you, there was one time that I was so impressed at a city council meeting. And that was when we were during the community aggregate for community choice for energy. And there was a council member who went through like a 15-minute history of community choice in energy. And he went through all the way back to the 80s. It was Corey, and it was awesome. Are you here? I mean, it was so impressive. He had done such due diligence. He was so passionate. And I think that he wanted to distinguish that this choice wasn't purely for sustainability, but also because it was a choice of competition in the marketplace. But I was so impressed by that. I've been since 2016, November 2016. I've missed one city council meeting to go to my son's senior award night, and I have seen some great meetings. And I've been impressed by the behavior at the dais. And I have seen our council have very different opinions about things and respectfully disagree with each other and present persuasive arguments to each other and come to a consensus. And I've also seen a majority win. So that's the best I can do with that question. Thank you.
Well, the word diversity, I think, has had a diversity of interpretations already in terms of the questions that were asked here. But as I heard the question, I think what was being asked is more about diversity of opinion. And the way I think about the city council working well is not that, everyone brings different skills, qualities, opinions, ideas to the city council. That's a great thing. That's what makes it work. A diversity of opinion, bringing in new ideas, asking hard questions. If a council stops doing that, if a council feels a little too secure, that they just feel the public just, when you cancel an election and everything's great, I think that's a bad signal to send. I think we always need to have a little pressure from the community. I think we always have to have a little pressure from each other on the council to hold each other accountable, to do the best we can with the difficult policies that the city is faced with all the time. So I think the council works best when people ask hard questions, not in a divisive manner, not in a way of a sort of scorched earth policy where my side's going to win and your side's going to lose. It's more about, can we make this an open discussion where we're not afraid to ask hard questions like, well, the citizens have asked us to purchase the water company. What do we need to do to carry that out? What kind of resources and skills? What's our responsibility to do that? We as a council, what are we expecting from our staff? How are we going to hold them accountable? Thinking, we talked about expertise earlier. When you talk about the legal kerfuffle that went on in the background of the city council about the water, you can say, oh, it was just too complicated, or you could say it's the council's responsibility, and they have to own it. And that's another part of what goes on in the council, is that when you don't do your job, when you didn't pay attention, you have to take responsibility, be accountable to the citizens, let people know, don't pretend everything's okay. That doesn't make for strong city government.
So just to make sure I understand this, is one thing I agree with and one thing I don't agree with, correct? That's the question? Okay, got it. The thing that I disagree with is this actually a recent proposal by the city council where they allocated $20,000 on behalf of the police station to survey residents electronically. I think if we're going to get a police station built, and when we decide on how to build that police station and how we're going to fund it, we cannot use the tactics that we used in 2015 and 2018 to get that police station built. We need to turn out 67%, most likely, of voters. And just to send surveys to individuals and say, what do you think about the police station, I think is problematic. What I would have decided to do is empower our nonpartisan groups like the League of Women Voters, empower them, help build out their volunteer base, and then go into communities and survey them. So that's a thing that I do not like. The thing that I do like, I think this is a really good city council, a group of folks that have been serving for quite a while, and their track record is something that I'm really impressed by. There are some individual folks that I would really like to highlight. I think Joe and Sam are two people that hopefully I can model after. Joe has done such a great job with homelessness and getting the collaborative up. I mean, he has essentially had a single vision and has gone around the community and selling that. And I hope to be that kind of council person. And Sam, I think the individual that he is, the regional leader that he is, has worked extensively to bring grants here into this city to make sure that you, the taxpayers, are not paying for anything. So I think some of the individual work that they have done is something that I hope to model after if I'm elected.
With regard to diversity of thought and the diversity of the current council right now, whenever there were difficult choices to be made and the vote was 3-2, it was never predictable who were the 3 and who were the 2. And I think I have a handle on what are the individual members' politics and where they lean politically. And whenever they were deciding something that went 3-2, such as community choice aggregation, whereby we can go out and purchase energy contracts separately from Southern California Edison, the placement of the Pomona College Museum, those were 3-2 votes. And the nays were never just lined up based on their own political opinion. And one thing that I have noticed and learned from this existing council is that they don't just vote based on what their politics are. They vote on based on what is their judgment of this individual issue and the facts that is currently in front of them. And if I have learned anything from the people that have served and are not returning to this council, and if there's anything that I would try to emulate from what they have done in the past, it is the amicability and the agreeability and the professionalism with which they debated issues, disagreed, and came to a conclusion.
Every council member needs to bring his or her own opinions, his or her own thoughts on the issue with them, and be prepared to discuss it when the council meets to deliberate on the topic. And that varies immensely depending on what the topic is. Some are very small and simple, and some are quite large and involved, and really require going the extra mile to educate ourselves via all of the documentation that is provided to us, and asking questions to be able to form an opinion of what really is the right direction for Claremont. And this is something that we on the Planning Commission have been trying to do, getting all of our thoughts and ideas on particular issues out there, and debating them in public, because that's the important part. Not just for us to be talking and figuring it out, but to be expressing it so that the public understands why we're deciding what we're deciding. As far as the two, one I agree with, one I disagree with, the Village South Pacific plan, maybe I can explain that on another answer. The specific plan is going to cover the Village South Pacific area. We sent that on to council. We didn't think it was quite ready to go. We went to council, asked them to send it back to us. They sent it back to us. We fixed it. I think we improved it quite a bit, and sent it back to them, and they improved it. That was a good one. One I disagreed with was the whole Foothill Boulevard master plan. I think it was much too big. It's much more than we really need in Claremont. Foothill renovation could have been much more modest in scale.
Okay, our next question, we have about 6 questions, maybe 7, on the budget. So I hate putting them together because some of them are quite separate, but I will put 2 together. What is your plan to secure and handle the $50 million pension obligation? And what is Claremont's most, and I'm reading this verbatim, pernicious financial threat? And what is your proposed solution? And we start with Jennifer on this question.
Are we on? The most pernicious obstacle? Is that financial threat? The most pernicious financial threat. You know, I think that because the budget is structurally underfunded currently, well, the thing that makes me feel is the most pernicious financial threat is to lose employees and to lose employee morale. So I think long term, that would be a huge loss to our city. So I would hope that we could start addressing the structural deficit before morale goes down and before we lose any more amazing employees that serve our city. What will I do to fix the budget? I'll just fix it. No, just kidding. We have some contractual obligations. CalPERS is a complicated, difficult problem. The city, our city's financial department has a plan to get right by 2028, I believe. It needs to be paid off incrementally. Our debt because of the water, we will keep managing and and paying off. I think our best option is to look towards increased revenue through businesses, and to also really analyze what we're willing to pay for. Because this city doesn't belong to the governance, the city belongs to all of us, and we need to come to an agreement of what we're willing to support.
So what's most pernicious is, I think, revenues. We need to up our revenues. We're having trouble now with the structural deficit because we're frankly not bringing in enough money. We're very underweighted, in particular, on sales tax. Most California communities bring in about 30% of their revenues based on sales tax. Claremont's different. We bring in about 17%.
Feels good.
And I think we're sort of stuck in thinking about business in being a sort of narrow conception of sort of entertainment options, restaurants. I think we need to deepen and diversify our tax base if we're going to grow it. I think we need to think more about, for instance, what we can do in Village South and the way that we're going to parcel out and think about zoning. What are going to be the best ways that work for the character of the community, the scale of the community, but also help to benefit our tax base? I think another thing we need to think about are grants. A lot of local government is funded through grants. I just helped, as part of Traffic and Transportation, to bring in a $7 million grant for transportation-related options on Foothill Boulevard. There are many other local, either from the county, the state, or the federal government ways in which we can find funding to, again, bring in more revenue so we don't have to cut essential services, so we don't have to think about the budget as a holy terror, but we can think about incrementally over time how this council and this community can do a better job of putting us on a firm financial footing through diversifying our tax base. On the other half of the question, Jackie, was what again? CalPERS.
$50 million
I should have just talked right through that one. That's a tough one. CalPERS went up 16% in our budget just over last year. It's based on CalPERS. We made a commitment to use CalPERS for our employees. They made some rather aggressive assumptions about finance, and obviously they're backing off and it's costing us a lot more money. Here's what we can do though, as a council. We can advocate that CalPERS does not put this burden on local communities and increase our unfunded mandate by continually lowering the percentage. We need to get to Sacramento and we need to fight and say, stop burdening our communities, give us a chance, give us some space. And that's what I do on the city council.
I got it. I think to deal with our budget challenges, we have a $2.2 million structural deficit projected, $50 million in unfunded liability. Those are huge challenges. We need to be more creative on how we generate more money for our small business community. 100% for new development, it makes sense and it fits in line with our community, but we have small businesses here right now that can generate more income if we do what we need to do. Ontario Airport, we have seen a growth in international flights by about 25% in the last year. We should be marketing Claremont and getting those flyers to come into this city, spend money into this city. Secondly, Discover Claremont. I don't know, show of hands, do you go on Discover Claremont? Show of hands, a couple of you. The image that you see on Discover Claremont is an individual playing golf. I don't think of Claremont as an individual, as a golf city. I imagine Claremont is a place where you come in, and you spend money, you check out the heritage, you check out our architecture, you go to the botanical gardens, you spend time at our niche businesses, and then you go over to the Claremont colleges where you go to a speaker series. We need to package this, and I hope to work with the Chamber of Commerce and other entities to improve our travel packages. I think this is very, very key, and I think we can generate more economic growth. And then third, Claremont colleges. They are going to come out with an economic development report at some point. It's been about a year and a half that they said they have. They're going to. I want to take a look at that report and say, where are the areas that we can tap into some of our greatest assets, which is our college students. They come into the community. Are they spending money in our small business community? Claremont cash cards, for example. Not every small business takes the Claremont cash from students. We should figure out how to make that software technology cheap so we can get students to come in and spend more. And that, I think, will help us tackle some of our budget issues. Thanks.
So what do I think is the biggest challenge relating to our budget? And I'll tell you what I think it is. What is the biggest threat to us and what is the biggest potential problem going forward? It's this. The question is not when, the question is not if there will be a future recession. The question is when. And when that happens, how do you prepare for that? You have capital reserves. And you cannot put money into your capital reserves if you don't have budget surpluses. Whomever you elect, I hope it's me, but whomever you elect, the problem will not change. The people you elect to be your next majority of your city council, next year they're going to have to pass a budget. And that budget is going to be extremely unpopular. And it's going to be unpopular because it's going to have to raise revenue and it's going to have to decrease services. And you're going to have to elect 3 people who decide how do we do that. But there's no way around this problem. That's the problem.
Mic drop.
Pensions in California are a very knotty problem at the moment. Knotty with a K, that is. And the California League of Cities is forecasting that over the next 6 years, most cities in California will see pensions eat up not about 8% of their general fund revenue, which is currently on average, but up to 15, in some cases even 20% of their general fund. It's a big deal. California League of Cities is pushing for more flexibility for cities to handle employee pensions through the Public Employee Pension Reform Act of 2012 that Governor Brown signed. As of 2013, we do have more flexibility with recently hired employees, but it's still not going to solve the problem. It's still going to rise, and it's especially going to hit cities that have their own police departments because those tend to have higher pension costs associated with them. So it is a knotty problem, and there is no easy solution at the moment, and there are going to have to be a lot of tough decisions made in this next budget and for several years to come. With the most pernicious financial threat, there's not just one. It's pensions. Insurance rates are rising rapidly. Utility rates are rising. It's costs going up all across the board. We're forecasting somewhere around $49 billion for the next fiscal year, and I'm going to try and see if we can't figure out a way to work within what our current revenue is, and that will help to fix future or prevent us from having future structural deficits. Thank you.
So in regards to the budget, 2 minutes is really not enough time to talk about it. But as far as what's a threat, complacency is a threat. Lack of thinking out of the box is a threat. Lack of innovation is a threat. And lack of revenue is a big threat. I think there's plenty of opportunity for us to look at how do we start to put reserves and continue to build our reserves and make that a priority. It is true, there will be a recession. But the question is, are we starting to put away money for that? I would say in the decades previous, there has been some spending, and I think there's an opportunity to do more saving. In regards to the pension, 15 million is a lot. But what I will tell you is, people have come to me and said, why don't we get out of it? Why don't we walk away? Here's the problem with that. Our contractual obligation says that we walk away, we owe $250 million with a B to PERS. This problem with PERS started decades ago. This is not a problem that just started today, that just started this year, or just started some years back. This is a problem that got ignored some time ago, and we'll have to address it. I think in some ways to address it is increasing revenue, bringing an innovation hub in, providing zoning, unique and revenue generating zoning opportunities within village expansion. I think there's plenty of opportunity to look at revenue streams, look how we're spending money today, and be efficient with that as well. Complacency kills us, and I think we need to take an active role in managing this debt.
Okay, as I say, there are lots of questions about the budget, and I think some of you have, in your answers, have actually answered these other questions, but I'm going to combine a couple of the remaining ones. This question actually assumes something, but I'll let you deal with it. And we will start with Zach Corser, and that is, what taxes will you increase to balance the city budget, and will they be permanent? And what other ways do you see to increase revenue to balance the budget?
I see what you did there. Whoever asked that question.
These are actually three questions, so
Right, but the assumption, of course, is raising taxes. Well, I'm not for increasing fees or raising taxes where, it's not justified and there's not a reason to do it. I'm a guy who doesn't take no for an answer. And one of the things I've learned being on traffic and transportation, I've had a great experience being there, but sometimes, things are really difficult. They're hard. Problems don't present themselves very easily. They look confusing. People see the easy solution. The easiest solution would, of course, just to be put an additional burden on our residents in terms of taxes. I don't think that's the solution. I think it's the responsibility of the council to find ways to increase revenue through grants, through building the tax base, through working hard to put together a budget that makes sure that residents don't have to pay more. So the idea that our first resort should be more fees, I don't agree with that at all. I think it'll be hard. I don't think it's obvious right now, although there's some good ideas that are coming out of this, that will continue to come out of this. We talked about the new committee, the ad hoc committee on financial ideas. They're going to be coming up with some ideas as well. I've got some as well. I've brought them up already in terms of ways that you can increase our tax base. There's even little things that we can do. For instance, our emergency fund, we've had to spend this down. It should be about $7 million. It's about $5 million right now. We've kind of handicapped ourselves in how we can invest that money. We're a little too conservative. We don't very much earn the rate of inflation on that. I think we ought to be able to invest those monies and get a better rate of return so we can try to replenish that in the next few years through investment, because we're not going to have a surplus in the next couple of years. And I think having those kinds of emergency funds are really necessary, because it's not necessarily a financial disaster. It could be a natural disaster. God forbid there's an earthquake or a fire or something where the city really needs that money. We need to replenish it. And it's ideas like, investing that money to replenish it. That's what I'll bring to the city council.
Since I announced that I was running, I've been knocking on doors pretty much every day. My legs hurt. But it's been a fantastic experience to talk to people. There's a gentleman over on Baseline who came to the door and we spoke for about 10 minutes, and he showed me his bill, his yearly bill, his tax bill. And it had about $7,200. I was like, whoa. And that's intense because he also is dealing with cancer. And fortunate enough for him, he's been able to have the health care that he needs and the support that he needs. There are individuals out there right now that don't have, that are on the verge of being homeless. Especially if you go into Claremont South and you take a look at some of the economic reports over there, you can, you can take a look and see there are individuals that it's getting harder and harder for them to stay in their homes. So to answer your question, I am not for new taxes just because I want to have a quick fix and solve problems. There needs to be empathy on what we do in the decision making that we do. And I spoke to this earlier as well about some of my ideas to generate additional revenue and to bring more income or bring a stronger revenue stream through our small business community, and to invest in our small businesses to be able to keep up with our government spending. Something that hasn't been talked about tonight is our lighting district. This is where you provide services for your parks, for the lights that we use, the trees that you take care of, et cetera, et cetera. Those costs are going up as well. minimum wage has grown. The city has absorbed a lot of those costs because minimum wage has grown, has increased. And so we need to be thinking in mind, like which, as Jen said earlier, which government services are we willing to look at that we need to scale back on? And one of the things I am proposing is that we should not put additional trees in our city if we cannot afford to sustain them. We have about 25,000 trees right now. I love this city and I love the trees here. This is one of the reasons why I live here. But if we keep growing, putting more and more trees, and we can't have the government funding to support that, that's something that we need to evaluate. Thanks.
I think that the question of what is going to be our future source of increased revenue, I think that there are a couple of ways that we have to look at this. First of all, we just have a brand new committee on financial opportunities, and we have a vibrant committee and commission system here in Claremont. And at the last commission dinner, one of the council members said, here's a piece of advice I have for all of you going forward, is listen to your commissions and listen to your committees. So I want to see what they come back with, and we have to see what other opportunities there are to generate revenue. We're just not doing it. But there's something very specific that I want to mention that I don't think gets talked about enough. And that is, it was mentioned before, our landscape and light district. Our landscape and light district costs approximately $3.8 million a year. And we only collect about $2.5 million. We continue to fund the deficit of that operation from our general fund. And I think that going forward, we need to have a grown-up conversation with residents and say, what do you want? Do you want services that cost $3.8 million? And if you do, are you willing to pay for it? Or do you want services that only are paid for in the $2.5 million that we generate? That's how we got into this mess, is by not having these conversations. We are paying the deficit on that fund from our general fund. And I want to look into that.
I would not be looking at raising any taxes. I think the income that we get now is going to be adequate. Nor would I be looking to solicit additional revenue through development just to get more revenue. I think we're experiencing the results of that in our city already, and I don't like the trend that we're seeing. I think we're getting a little bit too aggressive. I think we're putting revenue generation ahead of good, sound urban planning and city planning, and I would not advocate that. And I think that by focusing on increasing revenue, by even contemplating increasing taxes, that just kicks the can down the road again and continues the structural deficit problems that we have. If we don't fix the structural problems, we're going to keep coming back to the same point again and again and again. It's better to fix it now and then move on and be in a much better financial position. As far as taxes expire, well, it was assuming that we added taxes and if they would expire. And it's a very good idea when taxes are begun to sunset them after some particular length of time. And you pick your time period, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, so that you have to come back and reassess that tax at some point in time and relook at it and ask ourselves, what is it funding? Where's the money coming from? Is it still doing something we need done? Is there a better way to do it? It forces us to relook at things rather than just having things on automatic pilot, which is not a good plan. That just leads to structural deficits.
So raising taxes is not something I think as a council and as a community should be our number one option. We should be looking at other options, other revenue sources, being creative and innovative and bringing new revenue sources to our community. One way to do that, and I spoke about it earlier, was on the Innovation Hub. bringing a unique set of ideas and entrepreneurial spirit in combination with the assets and the brain trust that we have from the colleges, and start to create a new economy for our community, a renewed economy. Something that's happening done very well in Santa Monica, Venice, Pasadena, Riverside, and other locations. We do need to look at making sure that our small businesses are not just surviving, but thriving. We need to make sure that we're bringing in revenue from outside of our community in the form of wanting to be a destination city, wanting to bring that revenue in. Listen, we don't bring enough ourselves to pay for our budget. We have to be a creative community. We have to be creative with our dollars that we spend. We have to be efficient with that. And we have to bring in outside revenue. I'm open to all kinds of ideas and all kinds of ways to do that. I'll give you a quick example of how I've done that in the past. I became president of the HOA, my HOA here in Claremont 8 years ago. We had $40,000 in reserves and $70,000 to $80,000 in past due bills or past due income. We turned it around. Not only did we improve and beautify the community, we now have over $250,000 in the bank after 8 years. There is opportunity to do that at the city level, and I hope to do that for you.
I think that any problem that is complex needs to be approached with a spirit of agility and creativity. The structural deficit, I believe, this is not the first time that Claremont has faced hard times, and it definitely won't be the last time that Claremont will face hard times. I believe in our community's intelligence, and I believe in our community's reasonableness. And I do think that it's important that we have a conversation about what we value and what we're willing to pay for. Nobody wants to throw good money away and not feel like there's not a return. But investing in Claremont is not a waste of money. Our transit occupancy tax currently is 10% plus a 2% of a Claremont Tourist Business Improvement District tax, which puts it up to 12%. I would be for looking at ways to potentially improve our college relationships and seek to have a payment in lieu of taxation agreement with the colleges where they support a tourist business improvement district, because it would behoove them greatly to have our hotels be wonderful places to go to, and then that would be an ongoing source of tax revenue. I believe that improving our relationships with the colleges could lead to ongoing pilot agreements, payments in lieu of taxation that could be beneficial to all the entities. And I also believe that we need to, well, I've already said that, okay, that's that.
Okay, I want to apologize ahead of time to the lovely people who came out to hear this candidates forum. We have many more questions, but we're running out of time and we have to do closing statements. But here's one question that perhaps the candidates could address in their closing statement if they wanted to. And that is, what is your number one, and again, I can't read writing that's not clear, but I'm going to guess at it. What is your number one strength, skill, or trait that differentiates you from the other candidates? Now we're going to start with 2 minutes.
So this is our closing statement?
Yes, these are the closing statements,
Cool.
yes, because we're ending at 8:30. And we start with, no, sorry, Mike, we start with Jed Liano. The first shall be the last, and the last shall be the first. You're familiar with that? Not at the election,
So,
tonight.
I'll try to answer this question, and I'll also try to summarize my my position for you, and I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight. It is an honor to take your questions and to have the opportunity to hear what you're concerned about. And, you know, I want to tell you what I think sets me apart. And I've been practicing law for 12 years. When I was a little kid, I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And I grew up in the 90s, trial and century, O.J. Simpson. When I was 15 years old, I used to put on my dad's suit, and I used to stand in front of the mirror, and I used to pretend I was F. Lee Bailey cross-examining Mark Furman on the witness stand. And I really do believe that leadership and getting elected to this position is not just about sitting at the dais, staff present you a problem, and then you vote yes or no. I really do believe that leadership also contains an element of communication. There has to be a part of motivation and inspiration to this job. When you hear somebody speak, are you proud that that person is going to represent you in your city? Does that person evoke what you think about for the future? Does that person evoke a vision for the future of this city? And I hope that when you hear me speak, that you see that come through. Thank you all very much.
Yes. Michael Sarasa.
Thank you. I think first that I hope that I possess some of the qualities that these individuals that I'm sitting with and standing with have. The institutional memory, small business intelligence, affability and love for a city, an individual here who understands how to bring complex problems and simplify it, and I hope some of Jed's oratory skills, because it's just like always following him is a thing for me. I've been an organizer for 10 years, and I think the biggest quality that I hope you see in me is my love for people. I have a passion for this city, and I have a commitment to individuals. I've been organizing for quite a long time, and if I didn't love what I was doing, I wouldn't be doing it anymore. I wake up in the morning, get my job done, and then I go canvas and I talk to folks who tell me sometimes I'm flat out wrong, and get off their doorsteps, and sometimes folks who invite me in and have a half-hour conversation with. I want to bring those qualities that I have picked up over the 10 years in my profession into City Hall. And I think tonight I displayed to you that I am willing to pitch and encourage ideas and think innovatively on how we can come together and solve those problems. And I hope that you see that I am trying, or not trying, but I reflect the very best in each and every one of you. Because the city is great. The city brings me a lot of peace and comfort and quiet. And I can run at 11 o'clock at night when I'm stressed out in my neighborhoods because I feel safe. And I want to continue to preserve that and bring additional opportunity and togetherness if I'm so lucky to be elected. Thank you.
Zachary Corser.
Well, what can I say? I teach public policy for a living. I love working in politics. I love the whole idea of self-governance. I'm very passionate about democracy. I love it when I see a high turnout during an election. I love it when one of my students decides, you know what? I understand the headlines. I'm going to DC and I'm going to help try to fix this problem. And one of the things that I've learned, being a teacher of policy and being someone who reads a newspaper and being somebody who's been heavily involved in Claremont, the Claremont community, is that it all starts right here. We need a firm foundation as our community. We can't look to Sacramento, we can't look to DC. It starts here. And I'm really excited to be a part of this process. And I would love to be able to bring my skill, energy, integrity, ideas, and bring them to bear at the Claremont City Council to help serve you and to be an even deeper part of this community. What an honor. As you might know, the job doesn't pay a lot. You might know it doesn't come with a lot of praise. But I think it's a vital and important way to make sure that this city lives up to the best it can be. And what a fortunate thing for us to live here in Claremont, California. You know, I've loved this place since I first came here in 1995. I've kept moving back, like I said before. I'm not going anywhere. I think there's a lot more work to be done together with you guys. I'm asking for your vote. I want to serve you. I want to serve this community. And I thank you for coming tonight.
Well, what sets me apart? It is true, I am affable. I'm a really hard worker, and anyone who's worked with me on a committee can testify to that. I am dedicated, and I am motivated by serving this community, a community that I love and a community that I know very, very well. I see our issues more linked together than separate from each other. I see, and to me, that points to process. And I think that the way we handle things is important. I think that each decision is going to affect another decision. And I think it's important to hold that big picture. I believe in listening. I believe in communicating. And honestly, I would rather be like working on a project doing the dishes right now together than like standing up here talking about myself. But because I want you to know about me, this is part of the thing, right? You might not want an entire council like me, but you do want one of me. Vote for me on November 6th. My name's the last one on the ballot.
So we heard a lot of ideas tonight, including some ideas that I brought to you. But I will tell you that we need to collaborate, be open, and work together on the challenges that we will be facing in this community. I think I have the ability to do that, to work with fellow council members, to work with staff in the community to bring us together. I think I have a very unique perspective as a candidate because over the last 23 years, I've been a visionary. I executed that vision as an innovative entrepreneur, and every day I steered that ship, steer that budget, steer that and increase that revenue, and make those tough decisions as a chief executive. I have a unique perspective as a candidate, as a volunteer leader for the last 20 years in this community. Since being on the 4th of July committee in the late 90s, to the Chamber of Commerce, to after school programs, to being elected by my peers as chair of the Police Commission the last 4 years. I have a unique perspective of being at the bottom of the social ladder, picking myself up from homelessness, unemployment, to being employed and being an employer. Today, I've been climbing the social ladder for 25 years, and I am a different person today, a stronger person today than that homeless child 25 years ago. I ask you to join me. Join me to collaborate together. Join me in maintaining the quality of life we enjoy. And join me by supporting me and voting for me on November 6th. Thank you.
Being receptive to ideas is a very important thing, and in my daily life, I am always on the alert. My ears are always there looking for new ideas, and they pop up in the most unlikely places sometimes. But if I am not looking for them, if I'm not receptive to them, then I don't hear them and I don't process them. But when I pick up a new idea, I process it, I internalize it, I think about it, and if it makes sense, then I incorporate it into my thinking process. And that comes from listening to people, not just waiting for them to finish talking so I can talk, but actually listening to what they have to say and picking up what's important from what they have to say and figuring out, okay, this is something I can add to my, well, quote unquote, repertoire, or my knowledge base, if you will. That comes from listening and discussing with people, and I do enjoy a good discussion, as some folks in this room know, if he's still back there. So that is something that I think any good council member needs. You have to be looking for ideas and bringing those ideas along through the process to get to the best decisions that we can for the town. In addition to that, I'm looking to retain some of those attributes that have made Claremont the nice place that it has been for all these many decades, and not seeing them slip away through, just ever more condo developments and just making Claremont look like every other town around us. That's not why people wanted to move here. People wanted to move here, as they tell me, because Claremont is different than other places, not because it looks like every other place. If you agree with that vision and my thinking, please vote for me on November 6th, or sooner if you're voting by mail.
And speaking of that, I'll give you afterwards a moment to applaud for all the candidates. I just want to say, I want to caution you, my husband and I had the problem, or he had the problem, of finding out that after all the years of living and voting in Claremont, that he was not registered. So I checked today on lavote.net to see if I was registered. I'm a permanent absentee ballot. They said, yes, I was, but that he wasn't. So I would encourage all of you to check out lavote.net. And I think you just type in your address, your name, address, and date of birth, and they'll tell you. If not, then you should contact them or call them. There's an 800 number you can call. It's very important that you're registered to vote. He actually, when he was at the polls, he was told that he had to have a provisional ballot, and then he had got something in the mail months later saying, yes, your vote was counted, and yet they have him as not being registered, so go figure that one out. Anyway, I want to thank Jean Hart, Carol Merrilees, Karen Gastineau, who were the people who handed out and collected the questions, the cards, Matt Jones, our timekeeper and Facebook guy, Bill Wilson, our videographer, and his helper, whose name, I'm sorry, there he is in the back with the beard, and Maria Goodwine, who's our secretary, who handed out the flyers. If you're a student active in Claremont, take a flyer, you can join us. It's $10 for individual, $15 for a family, and do some good work in the community. Now we can thank our candidates for being here.